always goes so fast every time. Every time I do it. And I always say that, but it always does. Okay. I always like to pop on when we're in a big portal, summer solstice, equinoxes. I don't really do full moons because to me I don't get a lot out of the different full moons anymore. And you're going to find that as you integrate in more of the planets, and when I say integrate in the planets, all the planets are inside of us. So, like if we take Mercury retrograde, for example, which used to really just turn my world upside down. I hated Mercury retrograde. Anytime it went Mercury retrograde, I also used to hate Venus retrograde because Venus is my ruling planet. So when Venus is retrograde, I feel like I just cannot do anything right now because Venus is retrograde. And Venus retrogrades for like, what, 6-8 weeks? I mean, it is a long ass retrograde for Venus, but, well, not as long as some, but it is a long time. But once you integrate in the energy of the planets, and they are inside of us, and so when I say they're inside of you, but you have to integrate them in, meaning anything that's not the energy of those planets has to be purged. So Mercury retrograde comes along because in our human aspects, we can't communicate. We don't communicate. Human aspects do not communicate. So it teaches us clearer communication because so much stuff gets completely, screwed up during Mercury retrograde because we don't know how to communicate clearly. Once you learn to do that, you'll find Mercury retrograde doesn't bother you anymore. I don't even know when they used to be. I used to mark them on my calendar a year out so I'd know. And now I have no idea when any of them are. Because I've integrated in and now I'm over-communicate pretty much everything. So I don't have to deal with that issue. It's also speaking your truth, speaking from your heart, throat chakra opening. A lot of this stuff goes into Mercury retrograde. And I don't want to say that. And getting through. Getting through the distortions where you're not doing that in your realities. So just going to throw that one in. Just going to throw that one in. Because when we get to the solstice, those are full moons. Full moons used to be the same kind of thing for me. Now I don't feel a lot during full moons. Full moons usually help you close out something. They'll give you that pop to close something out. You have the energy behind you to close something out. Their completion phases. Used to be new moon was beginnings, full moons was closures. You kind of move past that after a while and they kind of will flip and they'll kind of be different. And then after a while, you don't really notice them anymore. Because once you start closing things out that needs to be closed out, you start energetically seeing the ending of things, you don't feel the need to wait for something like that. You see it and you do it. You don't procrastinate. Our human ego is going to procrastinate. It's always going to wait for the last minute to do something. It's always going to dip and dodge. I had a friend that used to call it that. Dip and dodge until I can't get out of it anymore. That's what our human aspect does. So once we take all those excuses away, we have no more excuses on what we have to do. You're going to find that you don't do that anymore. All of a sudden, you're like, no, I've got to take care of this. And once you take care of it, you're not going to have the issue of trying to postpone and needing that full moon to kind of knock you out of that reality. It's kind of like a hard kick out of that reality. Now, the solstice, to me, there's different energy between planetary retrogrades. There's different energy to me from full moon and the new moon, and then you have all the solstices and the equinoxes. They have a different energy to me. They still have a cadence to me through my ascension process where I can feel like in the summer solstice, I'm pretty much shown things that I cannot take with me into the next, I'm going to call it the next linear year, because I do think the years have a cadence too. Like every year you're going to be working on some other step of ascension and everything else you've worked on before. You're going to continue to work on that, and here's something else you're going to work on. Like last year, I was learning to exist with people in a different consciousness. That was a big part of my last year. Because sometimes it's not just about the work you put out. It's how, and it's never really just about that. The work is kind of just a byproduct of living ascension. When you're living your ascended life and you're integrating and you're purging all the time, and you're transcending your human ego in the fact that human ego is not making decisions anymore. It's still there, but it's not the one that's in control anymore. It's no longer it no longer commands what you do. You're not ruled by emotions anymore. You don't take any of that stuff to heart like you used to. You lose your sentimentality. You don't have any of that anymore. You just start to really shift and change on how you view things, right? And the more you shift and change on how you view things, the more you're going to really start to hone in on what is coming through right now. And normally during the summer solstice, I get triggered the most because I can see all that stuff I can't take with me. The program I'm still carrying, the story I still have around a relationship with a person, whatever it is, and it's going to be different for everybody, but you're going to see the similar energy signature in all of it. What can you not take with you? What is your universe trying to show you that's very distorted now? You can't carry that forward. And if we can't carry that forward, what do? We have to purge it. And if we don't see it ourselves, we don't open ourselves up to seeing it ourselves, what's going to happen is we're going to set up physical realities to go through to purge the energy. Now, sometimes we'll see a mix. Sometimes I'll see a mix where I can purge a lot of it energetically because I can see it. And once you have the consciousness to see it, like you know you have something going on there. I shouldn't be getting this pissed off. I shouldn't be getting this upset about something. It's really triggering me. What's going on with me? Why is this bothering me so much? Why is this getting on my nerves so much that I can't? All I see is red right now, and every time I go through the situation, and then there's another situation and kind of the same thing, and I got to go it again and again and again and again. It just keeps repeating. We start to identify those things and say, okay, what's going on with me? Let's purge this. Sometimes I need a mini reality. I might have one little thing that happens, nothing that's really too big, too disorienting to the reality I'm in, but it'll just pop up and I'll be like, okay, let me see. This physical reality is trying to trigger me again because there's still more left and I thought I was done, but obviously, I'm not done yet. So you're going to see a lot of that. And what you saw in the summer solstice, you're going to see pop up again in the fall equinox, because the summer solstice was to be kind of the beginning of that gateway. And you've had 3 months to work through that, and now you might be triggered again on the fall equinox, which technically the fall equinox opened up a couple weeks ago. Some people might say it opened up before that. A lot of times you're going to feel it a lot earlier. It's not the linear date that matters. It's just a kind of a human marker. It doesn't really matter in a sense, but you'll feel it. It'll stay open for a couple more weeks. It's not really when you felt it, it's what you see. What are you really getting called to look at? What were you getting called to look at in the summer solstice? I can tell you there's going to be a very similar theme there. There's going to be a very similar pattern there, because what we're doing is we're just clearing. It's a big rotor for a lot of this stuff, because what you have to do starting in the next linear year, which normally for me will open up around November, December, I'll start to see it. I might not be full-fledged into it until actually 2024, but I'll kind of see what I'm going to be doing. Now, I have some inclination of what I'm going to be doing in 2024. I haven't really started any of it yet. I haven't had the bandwidth to do it yet, which tells me I've got to move some stuff around and let some stuff go so I can get into the 2024 templates that I want to create. So we energetically create them first, and then we have to physically create them. We energetically get the consciousness, and then we have to anchor in that consciousness. That's embodiment. Now we're going to go do it. There's I see a lot of the energetic acknowledgement, but then I don't see that follow up a lot of times with the doing when I'm looking at what a lot of the collectives are doing, or even people that are in different parts of their ascension. We can get really bogged down in the energetic part, and I did that too for a long time, and not into the doing part. You're kind of in the waiting part. You're in the let me shape all of it energetically with thoughts and not actually implement anything I see to do. We have to physically create it. And you will be physically creating. You might already know what it is. Maybe you don't know yet. Maybe you haven't cleared enough of the summer solstice stuff that came up. Maybe now that we're into the fall solstice, it's going to be that rotor to push you through. So you can clear a lot of the other stuff up, so you'll start to see what's coming. In our human reality, we had to physically see it come. Oh, I got that new job. Oh, I met this new person. I'm super excited about that. Oh, I feel this opportunity's coming in. I'm going to partner with this person. It physically showed up for us. And it felt like it came out of nowhere, right? Because we couldn't energetically see the building blocks to get to it. Once you can start to see the energetic building blocks to get to it, you kind of know what you're supposed to do. And a lot of times what happens in the ascension process in these higher soul aligned realities, we have to self-create them. They show up. We get pieces and parts of what we're supposed to do. We might get people to show up to help us. Most of the time for me, sometimes I'll get people to show up to help. Normally it's just me. Sometimes I do, but we kind of go without people for a long period of time because we also have to get used to creating on our own before we can actually come together with people in those higher timelines. So if you're in that phase where there's not a lot of people around, you're not by yourself. There's a lot of us have been in that phase for a long time where there's really not a lot of people around to help us really create anything. But there's a reason for that. Because we always depend on other people to do it. And that was kind of a pattern I had before. It's kind of trying to partner with other people to get something done. But then I'd be the one doing it all anyway. And then I would kind of learn to stop doing that. Wait till you get a partner that actually wants to create something and not just wanting the recognition of creating something and not actually doing the work, which is what a lot of us will kind of fall into, these distorted relationships, to kind of clear some of that, clear the hierarchy out, clear the patriarchy out, clear that person knows more than me, that person's more has a higher consciousness than me, that person can see more than me, so obviously they know more about me. Technically, on one level that is true. Some people can see more than others because they're in a different stage of their process. That doesn't mean they know more about what you should be doing. You still have to follow your guidance. You can listen to what someone says if you are outsourcing the consciousness to get more information on something. But if it doesn't set right, it's not resonating, it doesn't feel like, yeah, it sounds okay, but it doesn't sound like me. I would get a lot of people would say things to me and I'm like, yeah, it doesn't sound like me. I know me, and that shit does not sound like me, you know, so I don't think so. And now energetically, with some of the threads may play through in a different area, yeah, but it would never kind of play through that way. So for a time, we will outsource consciousness. We might read books, podcasts, we might go to tarot card readers, we might go to psychics, we might go to a lot of different tools, astrology, numerology. They all open us up. Human design, they all open us up to understanding more about ourselves for clearing purposes, you know, so we can align things on a higher level. That's what all these tools are for, you know, and they're invaluable when you're in those spaces and you're looking at these tools and you go, I really want to try this stuff. There's a reason. It's an activation for us. We want to try these things because it's time for us to try these things. You know, it's time for us to activate our consciousness, go on to the next level. We just don't want to get stuck in some of that stuff where we give our power away to somebody else telling us one thing or the other. And a lot of times if we continue to do that, we'll continue to get kind of slapped on the wrist for that. And we'll kind of learn, stop doing that. You know, stop doing that. It's not going to work out for you. And you're going to learn the hard way, which there was a couple I kind of learned the hard way on. Putting a lot of trust into what somebody said, and when it didn't pan out, feeling kind of betrayed by the whole thing. But it was me just disempowering myself to listening to that. You know, we kind of get caught up in trying to retrofit a reality into making it something it's not. Something it's never supposed to be, something it was never activated to be, something it was not built to be. But we try to take all that stuff and retrofit it into building something here. We try to fix it. You know, we try to fix the reality we're in to make it what we think at the time is soul aligned because of what we want. Not understanding it's more of what our human wants. It's not really what our soul wants, it's what our human wants. But because in the beginning we don't know any different. And I say in the beginning, this can go on for years. It went on for years for me where I would do this again and again and again and again. And I got so frustrated because I just could not get them to work. And I could see a higher version of them. I could see a beautiful version of these timelines, but I couldn't effing get it there. And no one else in the reality really seemed to want to shift into a different one. Everyone wanted to stay in the one they were in. So you kind of get to these places where we keep trying to fix the old ones. And because we're so afraid of going to the other ones. We're afraid of also, it's almost like, you know, in my human realities, I did finance work. And there's a term called a sunken cost, where basically it's, you know, you spent the money, forget about the money you spent. The idea didn't work, you know, whatever it was you were trying to design, it's not working. The item's not selling. It doesn't matter how much you spend. It's a sunken cost. We can't now continue to go down the road because we don't want to lose the money, don't want to lose the investment. These realities are sunken cost. They're created from a human consciousness. Even if we weren't fully human, even if we were kind of a hybrid in consciousness, even if we were going through an awakening, even in our beginning ascension processes, even midway through our ascension process, we're going to have these realities where we so want them to be one thing and they're not. We want them to be something else and they're not. But we keep trying because we feel we put so much energy into it. We put so much of our time, sometimes money, and all that time and money, they're just energy. We put so much into it. We want it to work. We still have an attachment to it. We still just want that to work. And we keep trying to retrofit it. And the Equinox is also going to show you where you're trying to retrofit things, where you're trying to get maybe people to see different things. I know one of the big things I've been clearing is some blood, ancestral karma, blood family stuff I've been clearing this year, but there's been certain situations where some people are being so disrespected, but they're okay with being disrespected. I'm not, with that reality playing out, though the reality technically isn't affecting me. I mean, it is in a small way, but that's also a way that I might be cleaning up after it all. But it's not up to me to stand up to these other people. It's up to the people that are actually being disrespected to stand up and say, no, this is enough. And you get frustrated maybe when people aren't doing that. You get frustrated when you can see a reality going a different way and you want it to go a different way, but you realize this either isn't my reality to play in. What am I trying to retrofit? Because I want a better reality for someone that they don't want for themselves. All these topics are going to come up. All these things come up so we can clear the distortions we have. Like, why am I so invested in a reality that technically is not my business? Technically, it doesn't concern me. That's a distortion right there that I've been working through since the summer solstice and even a little bit before that. But I could see it strong in the solstice, what was really kind of pissing me off. And it had continued, and I thought I worked through it all until here comes the fall equinox in to say you still got a little bit more left of this one, because you can't carry it with you. When we get into the higher timelines, when we get into the next stages and the next dimensions, we can't carry all this stuff with us. Look at where you're trying to retrofit it. Look at where you're trying to fix it. Look at where you're trying to fix it for other people. That's a big one we'll do, because we want everyone to get that connection, get that power, that inner power to say, this is bullshit reality. Why do you stay in this one? Why do you continue to go with it? What are we doing? What are we doing here, people? Why are we still in this? But then you start to realize it's some of it's not ours to do. Some of it's not our role anymore. We know what our role is. If we're supposed to just support a certain group of people, then you're going to support those people. Their inner dramas, in a sense, is what they have to work through. That's what they have to say no more to. And we can't continue to involve ourselves in some of that. Some of it's because when we get pissed off, it's still our stuff to work through. We don't like the way that's working out. We don't like the way that's going down repeatedly and repeatedly. But we also understand that maybe that's not our fight. And I really don't like to use the word fight, but it's not our reality to align. It's not our reality to fix. We really try to take shitty realities and make them little fixer-uppers. Part of it's our human ego still playing in those realities because we want to get something out of it. We're not done yet. We don't see it as a sunken cost yet. We still see it as something we can save. No, I can just tool it. I'm going to retool it, and it's going to be better. I'm going to retool this whole thing. I'm going to make it better. And we're like, damn, this shit is still... It's distorted, but now it's distorted this way, or now it's slanted up this way. So it'll continue to go on and on and on and on until we say that's the end of it. And energetically, ask to release it. Really put your feet on Gaia, go out and lay on Gaia, go out and go outside, take a walk, just let it go and just keep reprogramming into something else and say whatever you need to say. For the one I'm working through, I'm just like, this is not mine to worry about. Someone trashed this vehicle. I'm going to clean this vehicle up because I might use this vehicle at some point. Technically, I'm going to help someone out and do that. But the whole thing that went around this is not my fight. This is for someone else to worry about, not me. And I have to let that go. You know, other people have to stand up for themselves and say when that's enough. They just haven't gotten there yet. And sometimes we want to kind of point that out. You know, we want to have our human ego wants to say, well, don't you see how distorted it is? And that's not our higher self talking, that's our ego talking. We're trying to point out to someone else how distorted their reality is. Where I can look at me and say the same thing. How distorted is it that I even care about this reality when no one else in the reality seems to care that I care about it? So why do I care? Why am I in it? Those are the things we can get trapped in. Those are the things we can keep going around in. But if you've gotten this far with the program and you've identified it, you know you're working through it, you've identified it, you're getting to another big, deep part of it. If it's still here by the fall equinox, you're getting to a different, especially if you thought you cleared it. Now, if you're ignoring it, that's something different. It's going to continue to get worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. What I've seen is mine's gotten littler things are going on, nothing massive, nothing, you know, really reality shattering. Littler things are kind of popping up here and there, and yes, I can still get kind of pissed about them, but I'm finding the increments are a little bit smaller. The physical reality is a little bit smaller around the whole thing, even if maybe my trigger might seem a little outrageous for it, because there's still so much there. And if I can get that much of a trigger out of something so small, I'm kind of going all into it. I'm talking to myself, going all into it while I'm, you know, cleaning up a mess and going all into it in that sense. But I'm not sharing it with other people. I'm not voicing it, you know, with someone else. And if I do, I'll say, I just need to say this, and then I'm going to let it go. Let me just say this and get it out, because we do want to get it out of our body. We can't button it up and not say anything. You know, for a while, when I was in early parts of really seeing how this was holding me back to the next thing, I would kind of didn't want to say anything. I didn't want to acknowledge how pissed off I was about the whole thing. And once I started to acknowledge it, it was much better to acknowledge, yeah, this makes me angry, but let's look at why. You know, why do I not like the way this is playing out? So these are all things you're going to see pop back up during the equinox. No matter what phase you're in, you know, these are huge portals. These are huge gateways to the next thing. They're huge gateways. And for me, this is what you can't take. Some of us might see a little bit of what's coming. We don't get surprised anymore like we did in our human aspect, where some shit comes out of nowhere. Normally nothing comes out of nowhere. We kind of know it's coming. We kind of know what we need to do. But if you're not being called to do it yet, but you know you're going to be doing it, look at what you're being called to clear. Because that's the step you want to go to. We can't go to creating the new thing yet. There's something in our way. Because we try to create the new thing with this thing in our way, we're still in the same timeline where this thing is still bothering us, and what we're going to create is also now in this timeline. So it won't be what we saw. It won't be the highest version of what we're going to create, because we're now dragging it down into a timeline that is in a lower frequency than the timeline we originally saw this thing in, that we're trying to create. So be really honest with yourselves about that. Be really honest about this is important. Clearing is just as important as creating something else. A lot of us don't feel like that's a waste of time. Our human ego would say, well, you're wasting your time. Go do the thing. You know, it's not a waste of time to clear it. It's not a waste of time to acknowledge we have a program going on. It's not a waste of time to say, this is bothering me. Let me work through this. And maybe it'll take me 7-8 months to work through it. Maybe it'll take me 5 years to work through it. But let me just start piecing through this and consciously working through it, because it is holding back the realities I want to experience. I want to create. Calling forth other people that are going to be in that frequency you're going to now get to after you clear this, to create more. That's what we're going for. So, okay, I'm going to end. I did pick a card. I did not look at it. I grabbed it blind. So, and I didn't know what it was going to say. So, it's kind of interesting. I always think it's interesting how they come out. Okay, now this one says, and I could put it up, it's going to be reversed, but pure peace inside is required prior to a decision. Kind of goes into a lot of the theme of what we just talked about. We have to be at pure peace with whatever is pissing us off, and it's been pissing us off. Until we're at pure peace with it, where something can happen and it's not bothering us, we have not resolved it. We, have not let it go. As higher selves, we don't let it go. As humans, we don't let shit go either. We say we do. It's all lip service. We have to resolve it. We have to have it resolved. It's resolved when it does not bother us anymore. And until then, we can't really make a decision about any other parts of the reality, because the emotion clouds what we can see. It clouds the solution. And we don't want to cloud the solution. We want to be able to see the solution so we can move forward. Clear what we need to clear. Utilize the equinox. It is a very powerful time. It's going to be showing you a lot. It's probably been showing you a lot. It'll show you a lot for, a while now, probably till we get to maybe the 10-10 or the 11-11 gateway. We can drag it out as long as we want to, and we can go as slow with it or as quick with this as we want to go. We can go all in. We can go our human route and let's set up some atrociously difficult realities to trudge through to clear it that way. But we're going to clear it one way or the other. So let's not be blinded as to what we're trying to clear. And I think that's it. So, okay. I will see everyone next time, and enjoy the equinox.